in regards to economic development initiatives here in the state of California. Talk about wild and fire, if it's all right with each and every one of you. We believe that we are going to see millions of dollars moved into Sonoma County for vegetation management, dead and dying tree removal projects here in the coming 90 to 120 days. Focusing on drought, significant resources are coming Sonoma County's way when it comes to drought relief from the state of California. And then also touch on the issue of schools reopening and funding, and also quickly talk all issues of housing. So long story short, when it comes to the state's economy, we believe by the third and fourth quarter of this year, we're going to have the strongest California economy that we've seen in the last 60 years. A few reasons for that. Obviously, we're coming back from the abyss. Number two, the business sector, especially tech in the state of California, it was doing well prior to this pandemic. Their success has been expedited during this pandemic, and it is paying dividends throughout the state of California. We believe that we're going to see the highest hiring rates in the state starting in the third and fourth quarter. This rebound, we believe, is going to extend through early 2024. The other reason why we're going to see significant economic rebound in the state of California, $26 billion in federal assistance is now moving into the state. That $26 billion is going to lop an entire year off of this COVID-induced recession. We believe that the recession was going to last through 2024. We believe it's going to last through 2023. We also believe, state economists believe that our job numbers will be pre-pandemic levels by middle to end of 2023. Could happen sooner, but that is where our conservative estimate remains. So again, when we're looking at the California economy as a whole, a significant rebound and good news ahead. The one challenge in our economy that we're going to see, travel, leisure, and hospitality. That's going to be a slower rebound for Southern California and the Bay Area because of the group market and the business travel market. We fully anticipate in the North Bay through the North Coast, we will see near record demand in starting this summer and fall and going into the subsequent years. Humboldt County, Del Norte County has seen their largest bed tax collection in history over the last 10 months. So we believe the road travel markets like wine country in Sonoma County will benefit as that continued hesitancy from millions of wanting to get on planes or not wanting to get on planes will continue. So we think that's going to benefit our region. All right, quickly on economic recovery. I'd like to talk very real fast on the issue of tenant protection and paying a back rent. So as you know, we set aside $2.6 billion the state of California did to be able to pay back rent. It would pay up to 80% of all back rent from the start of the recession to any individual that's making 80% of the area median income. We do not believe that we're going to use that $2.6 billion. In fact, we only believe that we're going to use anywhere between 1.2 and 1.5 billion total. You will most likely see an extension of tenant relief and protection along with the back rent payment program into the end of this coming calendar year, but with a tighter eligibility window. So we may not see that 80% area median income qualifying. It may lower to 50%, for example. That's currently under discussion, but more to come here in the next 4 weeks on that with the state budget. Quickly on the issue of economic recovery with the state. Number one, we've pushed out $1.2 billion in small business grants. Number two, if you are a bar, if you're a restaurant, a hotel, a hair salon, a massage, if you have a massage business, if you are a barbershop and you have state license fees, you will not have to pay your license fee this year and next year. So we're putting in $115 million in fee waivers this year and next year, 659,000 total businesses across the state. So you do not have to apply, it's automatically going to happen. So the hardest hit businesses will get those state fee waivers here for the next 24 months. I'd like to talk about PPP conformity. So we finally got the guidance letter from the IRS that says that PPP conformity stateside is not considered a tax cut. We were delayed because the IRS was considering conformity as a tax cut. Candidly, that was BS. And we finally have that guidance letter. So you are going to be able to look at same federal conformity with state. So you're going to be able to write off stateside taxes, your anything related to employment, lease and rent, as well as utilities. As you know, we coming with the IRS, we said we're not going to, you don't have to file, as you all know, till May. You may have to file for an extension, but that form on the Franchise Tax Board website will be live. And again, we're looking at full tax conformity in those three areas on the PPP. 715,000 businesses across California received that, which is really critical. Quickly on getting folks back to work. We know that if we do not open state subsidized childcare centers, we're not going to be able to get workforce back. So there's 400,000 kids in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's about 125,000 who go to state subsidized childcare systems. A few thousand here in Sonoma County. We have to get those centers reopened to be able to get workforce back. We're now going to offer $525 voucher per child to each of the state subsidized childcare centers to be able to reopen. It's critical. Again, 400,000 kids attend a state subsidized childcare center. We're not going to be able to go back to normal until we get kids back, whether it's into childcare or school. And that's going to be a major focus here as we move forward. The last piece I'll say is if an individual is on CalWORKS, the state welfare system now, if they're on state welfare because they were unemployed, they will not have to pay state taxes on that unemployment. So that's critical. And the last piece I'll say, 5.7 million of the most vulnerable Californians earning $30,000 or less, or on SSI, SSP, will also get an additional $600 stimulus from the state on top of the $1,400 from the federal government. So that's really critical for the most vulnerable communities. All right, I'm going to keep moving here. We want to move quickly into the issue of wildland fire. So look, I don't need to give you the statistics. We know last year was terrible. 4 of the 5 largest wildland fires in our state's history all happened in 2020. 2020 stunk. The largest modern day wildfire in American history happened last year with the Mendocino Complex fire. We're investing record resources, and you're going to see a massive investment, historical investment this year. There's going to be 2 slugs of money. One we've already approved, $536 million. We've been negotiating that. We're leads on the Senate negotiating group on the wildfire budget. So $536 million moving into the CAL FIRE budget, vegetation management budget. I want to break it down quickly. Number one, we're going to hire an additional 1,200 seasonal firefighters this year. Those men and women are already being brought on board now. We're calling all CAL FIRE firefighters in 30 days early. They need to start reporting this month to their appropriate station because of the concern of an extreme fire season. Out of that original $536 million that we approved, $380 million will go into vegetation management grants. Vegetation management, as far as removing brush, dead and dying trees, limbing up trees, going towards fire breaks around neighborhoods and communities, evacuation planning, emergency planning for communities. 2 of the grants, Forest Health and the Fire Prevention Grant Fund. So that's moving right now. City of Healdsburg, any special district can apply for it. And I will tell you, we're very focused on Fitch Mountain. Our biggest danger to this community is Fitch Mountain. We're working right now on securing resources to be able to finally move a vegetation management project on Fitch Mountain. I want to say thank you to the City Council for their work on this and Chief Boaz. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have some good news to report to you in the coming 30 to 45 days. More to come on that, but that is the biggest concern for the city of Healdsburg, is making sure that we remove those dead and dying trees and having vegetation management on Fitch Mountain. We're also hiring 14 additional full-time California Conservation Corps crews to be hand crews, plus that That's 20 individuals each on the 14 hand crews. Plus, we've secured 7 former C-130s of the Coast Guard, and we're bringing them into the CAL FIRE fleet. Those large cargo planes, they're going to turn into CAL FIRE fire bombers. And we purchased those 12 night fighting Black Hawk helicopters, 4 of which now are in the state. Quickly on the issue of drought, 3.4 billion moving. Cities, counties will receive a minimum of $1 billion of this. I'm going to talk quickly about the slugs of money in the categories. Number 1, helping small business owners as well as homeowners become drought ready, taking out lawns, putting in drought tolerant landscaping, being able to help outfit homes that may not have been outfitted. 2, additional storage projects for cities, counties, and special districts. 3, focusing on small rural water systems who simply aren't up to beat and have major challenges with delivering water. 4, focusing on endangered species. And as you may have heard, we're now moving 17 million baby salmon from hatchery to the Pacific because of reduced flows, so that we actually have a salmon stock over the next 3 to 4 years. Housing, quickly. I'd like to highlight 3 bills. Number 1, affordable housing bond, SB 5. We're moving it. It will be on the 2022 ballot in November. About $6 billion for workforce housing. Really critical. Where our biggest crisis is right now, we need 1.5 million affordable rentals between 2015 and 2025 in this state. That's going to be a significant focus. Number 2, Senate Bill 10. It's going to be a little controversial. I want to be honest about it, but it's necessary. It allows by right for an infill project in the downtown core. So if you have up to 10 units of market rate or 10 units of affordable, you can build it by right in a community. It has to be infill, and it's capped at 10. The last piece I'd like to be able to talk about is CEQA. So right now, the average housing CEQA lawsuit from time it hits the court to a decision by the judge is 3 years. That's the average across the state. It's a little longer in the Bay Area. We have a bill, Senate Bill 7 that's moving right now, that would say to the judge, you have 270 days to make your decision. That will cut 24 months off of the average CEQA lawsuit for housing. So right now we do that for stadiums, we do that for clean energy projects, but we don't do that for housing. So we've amended the bill. It will be for any housing development, 15 million gross construction costs. Again, goes to 270-day judicial review. It doesn't tell the judge how they rule. It doesn't disrupt CEQA. It simply mandates the timeline. Last thing I'll say is schools. This is going to be a really good year for schools. And just want to say thank you to Healdsburg Unified for the amazing work teachers and classified staff administrators have done. Quickly, $1,400 to $1,700 more per student permanently. This will be the highest year that we've ever invested in K-12 public schools in the state of California. Federal funding, one-time federal funding, $4,300 per student this year, this coming school year, plus another $1,000 in state funds. So you're going to get a $1,400 to $1,700 permanent increase in student funding and a $5,300 one-time to help schools reopen. On community college and for Cal State, any student who now wants to go to a community college is guaranteed their first 2 years paid for free. So that's also really critical. Whether you're going on to a 4-year degree or you're going into an apprenticeship program or wanting to be in a trade, you get your first 2 years guaranteed paid for by the state of California. That's really important to be able to reduce student debt. I've gone on way too long. Mr. Glyden, I'll turn it back over to you. And really honored to be with you and grateful for your work. And I got to tell you, love calling Healdsburg home. It's been our home for 3 generations, and look forward to our continued work and partnership together.
Thank you, Mike. One, I'm prejudiced because I've known you for a long time and your mom. And,
Yeah.
You know, and you've been so great for the city of Healdsburg. I mean, right, starting with high school, getting on the school board and everything since up to being senator. So we really appreciate you. the work you've done. And, you know, for me, you know, you can become a little jaded about politicians, but you bring us right back home and tell us how great and how much work you really have to do. Just what you've gone through in the last few minutes is amazing.
No, I'm grateful.
Anybody have any questions out there for Mike while we have him?
I think there was a question in the chat box from Randy Johnson.
Yeah, go ahead and read it for Randy, if you would.
Perfect. It was regarding the flow of the Russian River this summer in light of the extreme drought and how that will impact the recreation businesses.
Yeah, Randy, really great question. Just want to be open and honest about it. We have great concern despite, and I gotta say thank you to the Sonoma County Water Agency and the Board of Supervisors and the new forecasting models at Lake Mendocino. They've been able to save 11,000 acre feet, significant amount of water back from flowing early in Lake Mendocino. You are going to see significant, I would think you should start planning for significantly reduced flows in the Russian River this year. There's just no way. I was just up at Lake Mendocino a week and a half ago. I have never seen it lower. It is lower now than it was in this time in the late 1970s, and that was our worst drought that we've ever seen in the state of California in modern days. So we're deeply concerned about Lake Mendocino. The state and the federal governments are working together on this, on potential solutions, but we will, I just don't think there's any way around it. And I don't want to BS you. I think we're going to see reduced flows here.
When that might happen, is there a timeline for that? Do they have any projections as to June, July? When are things going to get to the point where it's unnavigable?
Great question, Randy. I will, if it's okay with you, Jason Lyles is on the line, and I just want to take a moment to thank Jason. Jason's a former mayor here in Healdsburg. I've been working with him now for almost 20 years. I just want to say thank you to Jason for his incredible work, Healdsburg resident. Randy, if you're okay, I'm going to have Jason call you. I don't have a timeline, and I'm not trying to be coy with you. We just don't have it yet. So, but I think your August timeline is probably pretty spot on, but nothing official. Let me get back to you if that's okay with you.
That's great. Thank you.
And I'm sorry I don't have a straight answer.
I appreciate it. No, that's good. Good. Appreciate that. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
I also wanted to recognize Will Seppi, who's out there as chair of the board for the chamber. Will, did you have anything you wanted to touch base with Mike on?
What's going on, Seppi?
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining 2 days in a row. I know you've been up early yesterday, the Rotary Teacher Appreciation. Thank you.
No, it's good.
And this morning being with us. I just posted a quick question. One thing that I was curious about, any of the state money available to Healdsburg for infrastructure with concern to getting our reclaimed water back into town, one, and two, what about undergrounding utilities? Is there any of those funds for grant money for that? Yes,
I'll take reclaimed water first. So this money is built for speed. If the reclaimed water project is shovel ready, we will work with the city of Healdsburg to be able to get that submitted to the state. The only catch is we got to make sure that it's shovel ready. So yes, and that is absolutely eligible, and we'd love to be able to work with you on that, number one. And then the other piece on undergrounding utilities. I'm gonna take 60 seconds just to vent for 1 minute. So we're working right now with PG&E to be able to start focusing on potential undergrounding in some of the most high fire threat zones. They have 25,000 miles of lines in high fire threat zones. I'm going to narrow it down. There are 3,500 miles of line in the most extreme high fire hazard threat zones. A lot of those miles are in Sonoma, northern Sonoma County, Mendocino, Lake, and then over in the Sierra foothills and up near Shasta. This past year, PG&E did vegetation management on 2,200 miles of lines in some of the least fire threat zones. It's infuriating. And they're getting their tail kicked on this because of what they just did. So yes, so here's where we'd like them to go. We've asked them for a business plan to show what a 10-year vegetation management budget would look like versus undergrounding those potential 3,500 miles of line. I don't have the final numbers, Will, But I think that the initial investment for undergrounding, despite how challenging some of this terrain is going to be less expensive for ratepayers than doing vegetation management every 2 to 3 years. I will have more to report to you, I'd say by September, but it is absolutely on the table. And I'll just be honest, met with the PG&E team here 3 weeks ago. They're looking at it as well, but I don't have final costs on that.
All right, I see a hand up from Talia.
Yeah, we've got 2 questions here, and then we have one in the chat as well. So we'll start with Talia and then go to Skylar, and then I'll pull the one from the chat.
Okay, thanks. Mike, I remember us talking about cannabis way back, even in Washington when we were last there. I was wondering, because obviously this is something that's coming to Healdsburg in terms of a more robust conversation. Do you have any guidance or thoughts for us?
Yes, there is going to be a budget bill that is going to provide, it's still being worked, that will provide communities incentives to be able, local decision is still built into this. But I'm going to spitball a scenario. Let's say the Planning Commission and City Council decide that they want to be able to open up a dispensary. And that dispensary will guarantee all legal grown product in that dispensary. There will be cash incentives on the table for the city to be able to do so. And it would pay potentially for that applicants, all the fees, et cetera. So there is going to be a significant focus over the next 3 to 4 years in the state on eliminating the black market that continues to be a challenge. You're going to see stepped up enforcement on black market grows and stepped up financial incentives for cities and counties to be able to open up, legalize cannabis dispensaries and other businesses, cannabis related businesses, where the state will put dollars on the table to be able to do so, so that we're going after the illicit market and really trying to help spur additional business for that legal product. More to come on that, but you should see that here by June 30th.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know that you've also got a very tight time frame. So let's go to Skylar, council member, and she can ask her question. And then if you need to jump right off, Senator, we completely understand.
Hey, Councilwoman.
Hello, Senator McGuire. Nice to see you again. Thank you so much for your time. I'm doing great. Talia actually touched on my question. So mine was specific to SB 59 about revisions in cannabis law. So I'm not sure how much of what you said was related to that specific bill, but I just heard it could kind of redo a lot of the structure of how cannabis is done. So I'm not sure if there's any more to add. If not, we can go ahead and go to the next question, because I know you have.
Yeah, and Councilwoman, I'd be more than willing to sit down and talk more about it. So I think what we're going to do is some of what's in SB 59, and then there's a Skinner bill that we're working on right now that would put the incentives into the budget, and they would be working with the League of Cities and California State Association of Counties on how to roll that out. Again, I just want to be clear, Councilwoman, it wouldn't be overriding any authority of the council, but simply putting dollars on the table to be able to help open up regulated legal businesses.
Great, thank you so much.
No, thank you. And we'll follow up with you as well. So I have a couple of follow-ups so far. We have Randy on flows. We're going to follow up with the councilwoman on cannabis business.
Senator McGuire, I have one last question before you go.
Hey, Vice Mayor.
How are you? Good to see you. Thank you for
What's going on?
Just here in Healdsburg with everyone else. Just a quick question before you go. So the PPP loan funds are supposed to be open till May 31st, but I've been hearing from lenders from other small businesses that the PPP loan funds have been exhausted. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The PPP is largely out of money. And I will tell you, just sat down with a lot of the community banks, let's say Thursday, on Tuesday, they just cannot get access to additional dollars. So yes, you're absolutely right, Mr. Vice Mayor. PP is largely out of money. I'm just going to be blunt. Congress is looking at other ways to be able to do targeted programs. I'm hoping they're going to be able to get this damn thing done. It's desperately needed. So knocking on wood, it may not be PPP as what we're used to, but additional targeted program for some of the hardest hit businesses. So we do know the Biden administration is going to roll out a specific restaurant economic development program. They're working right now with the American Lodging Association on being able to assist hoteliers across the country. We're working with hoteliers right now to be able to do a 45 million marketing campaign, just like we did after 9/11. So you're going to see a more targeted approach, and I will follow up with you as soon as we hear more, if that's okay, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just don't have new details. The small business grants that the state did, expect another slug of dollars coming on top of the 1.2 billion starting in July.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm sorry I didn't have better news. And I just want to recognize Joan Churchill put into the chat that Alliance has vaccinated over 11,000 local workers. Let's give it up for Alliance, because they have just been working it during this pandemic. Thank you, Joan, for sharing that wonderful news. 3,500 residents in Healdsburg, and Alliance has really stepped up, and just want to say thank you.
All right. Anybody else out there for right now? Because I know Mike's got to take off for another meeting probably.
Yeah, we have floor session today. I apologize.
No
Hey,
worries.
Mike, can we get a hot damn?
Hot damn, you're damn right. There we go. How's it going?
Thank you very much, Mike. We really appreciate you coming.
Thank
Good to
you.
talk with you.
It's an honor to be with you. Thank you so much for making the time this morning. I'm really grateful to be with you. And again, so proud to call Healdsburg home. So thank you so much, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was wonderful. Great to have Mike there and to get what is a really quick. And if you don't catch every word he says, thank God we've got a recording because he goes through them quickly. On the agenda, we now turn over to the city council. I think we've got a full city council meeting going. All the people, but I'm sure I don't know what the Brown Act limit is on the number of people who can speak at a meeting when you're all here, but you've already had Skylar and Ozzy. So I'm looking at you guys policing yourself on that and asking which one of you wants to step up for city council notes.
I think Councilmember Hagley is going to take the lead here.
Yeah, and as long as we're not discussing anything, I think we're fine in a public meeting like this. And the goal here is to really get information out. First, I want to thank Senator McGuire and his update. I've said this before, but the advice that I got when I ran for city council is never follow Mike McGuire. And it seems like every time I always end up doing that, which isn't good. But anyway, I wanted to talk real quick at our council meeting. I really want to talk about water. So what I want to do is kind of talk about what we have passed. So we have implemented a stage 2 water shortage emergency plan. And so at the presentation at the council meeting, basically we're tracking below where we were in the last drought in 2014. That's how bad it is. And I think everybody's seen the pictures of the various reservoirs and Lake Sonoma and how that looks. So what this calls for is the residents and businesses to cut 20% in water use now. So that's all Healdsburg residents, businesses, schools, and city facilities, including parks, all have to reduce 20% statewide. Right now, Healdsburg uses 32% more water per capita than other cities. We're at about 141 gallons per day versus the Sonoma Marin average of 107. Which isn't good. 70% of the water use is residents. Commercial businesses are 20%, with the other 10% is city facilities, schools, and industrial businesses. So here's what I kind of wanted to talk about and really get the message out is what can we do and what can you do? So little things like use the dishwashers and washing machines with full loads. Fix leaks, including leaky toilets, install high efficiency toilets, water efficient shower heads, those kind of things. Turn off the water when brushing teeth, shaving. And it's weird how those little habits can add up, that every drop counts. Like I noticed, like force a habit when I was brushing my teeth, the faucet, and I need to turn it off. So it's going to be a little bit of retraining for all of us. The other key thing is we have a number of rebates available, and I'll put it in the chat. It's if you go to www.smartlivinghealdsburg.org. We have a ton of rebates, including lawn replacement. I think it's $1 a foot. There's, you know, $100 and some for replacing toilets. And at our presentation, Felicia was mentioning that if you have a toilet that's older than 5 years, or it was either 5 or 8 years, then you may consider updating it, because you can get them a lot more efficient. So I think that's what we want to focus on. Little things like adjusting your irrigation. You know, we're now restricted to watering our irrigation on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays from, I don't remember the exact times.
From 8 p.m. to 7 a.m.
7 a.m. So those are the kind of things, and, you know, it'll take some adjusting. I went down and adjusted my irrigation system, cut the time back so it comes on in the middle of the night. But also, you know, my dials kind of float between a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So if it's the wrong day, then I'll go back and adjust it. And, you know, so it's just, we just need to be aware and do what we can to just start cutting back. And it's important for all of us to do that. There's conversations with the hotel operators. I'm sure everybody's traveled, where you get a card that says, you know, if you need turn down service, then, you know, leave your towels on the floor. If not, hang them up, and then we don't have to wash them. So there's little things that can be done, and we're all in this together, and everybody's seen the pictures, and we're trending worse than we were back in 2015. And the good news is in 2014, the good news is in 2014, we did it. As a city, we were able to reduce by 20%. We've seen it with our city last year during the threat of PSPS, where we had to cut back on our power because it was just ratcheting right up. And as a community, we were able to do that to avoid a power outage here in Healdsburg. So this is something that collectively we need to do together. And like I said, I think it was 70% of the water use is from residents. So, and Vice Mayor, did you want to add anything from a business perspective?
Well, I just wanted to say, you know, 70%, just kind of you just said, is the water usage coming from residents. And so, you know, we get all of our drinking water from the Russian River. And so it's a finite resource. And so if we're not taking care of it, and if we're not being proactive about limiting our water use, you know, it's becoming dire is essentially kind of where we're at right now. So I just wanted to reiterate, you know, irrigation restricted to Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. The recommendation is I think it was for 10 minutes. Sometimes people, when they water in the evening, they choose to water for a longer period. So just restricting it to that 10-minute. No hosing down of hardscapes, that's prohibited. No washing of personal vehicles at home, that's prohibited. New pool permits must source water from elsewhere other than the city's potable water system. And the refilling of existing pools is prohibited except for topping off. And pool covers are highly recommended. So it's going to really take an all hands on deck effort. And, you know, as residents, you know, we've done it before back in 2014, where we limited 20% of our water usage. And so, you know, we have to kind of meet the need or the demand, or we have to meet the moment. There we go. So thank you all.
And the last thing I'll point out is I've talked to some landscape contractors, and especially with irrigation, there's a concern that, okay, now we're restricted to certain days, so people want to water longer. That's not necessarily needed. And so talk to your landscaper if you have somebody that's doing it for you. Otherwise, the shorter times at nighttime, when you have less evaporation, the water soaks in. What happens when you water longer is the water builds up and then it starts to wash away. So it's just a waste anyway. So you don't need to water necessarily longer, is what I've been hearing. So that's really my focus.
David, is the uptick all in the residential sector, or is it in other areas? Because I know we add businesses and what have you that obviously would increase water use over the years. Can you give us any information on where that increase is?
You mean the uptick on why we're at 141 gallons versus 107? Because yeah. I'm not sure if there's a trending of where we're up. It's just, you know, people get comfortable at a certain level. And what we're doing now is saying, hey, we all need to cut back, and we all have,
Just asking, is it all in the residential area or is it also in the business sectors as well?
I think it's across the board. I mean, the cut is across the board. It's whether you're a business, but the data is that 70% of the water use is residential. And I know from the last drought, when I had two tiny little kids that you could throw in a bathtub together, to now when they're 8 and 10, and that's not happening. Everybody, you have to make individual adjustments to figure out how you can cut by 20%.
I guess the question I got is though, how much did the residential use increase during that period of time? I mean,
I don't have that. I would have to get back to you.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
We've got
thank you.
Sorry, we've got one question here from Alan, and then we have a question in the chat as well from Patricia. So I'll go ahead and let Alan go, and then we'll switch over to the chat question.
I've just got a question on in the last drought, we opened up at the water processing facility. You could go get gray water, and if you came with a tank in your truck, are we gonna, maybe the city manager knows more about this, but are we going to open that back up so that we can go get recycled water for some agriculture use potentially?
Jeff, do you want to chime in on that one?
Sure. We're working. This actually came up at the city council meeting on Monday too. I wasn't here at that time, but what I've heard from our utilities department is that approach was cumbersome, a little hard to manage, and not well used. So what they're trying to do is rethink it. We will absolutely be looking at ways to get recycled water out into the community, but they're actually considering perhaps a delivery model where people could order and purchase water and have it brought to them. So we don't have that quite figured out yet, but we're working hard and fast to try to get that in place. We do have recycled water. It can be part of the solution. We just want to find a way that people actually take advantage of it.
I know at one point we were looking at putting purple pipe in to use recycled water for irrigation, at least maybe in the downtown area, and running it out to the golf course or some of those areas. Is some of this federal money, maybe is that available for a project?
It is. Just to tie the two presentations you've heard today together, we, and this is coming up a lot appropriately lately, the city does have a plan that's pretty darn close to what they'd call shovel ready, in the sense that it's designed to connect our recycled water system into town, get it under the freeway, and be able to use it for large public facilities, the golf course, the parks. Last time the city council chewed on this, it was not feasible financially. It's well over $10 million to do it. But as we've discussed at the city council level this week, if ever there were a year where we might actually be able to get our hands on that money, I think this is it, between federal and state programs. So this also came up with the city council goal sessions, and there was a desire to bring this conversation back. So we're going to do that soon, and it's proven to be very timely. I can assure you all that Jason Wiles has in his possession project scopes in detail for purple pipe or recycled water connections, also some additional wells that would give us a little bit more resilience, if just not to be so dependent on the Russian River at every time. So we have submitted that both at the state and federal level, and we'll be scraping around everywhere we can to try to get some support for that. It's not something that will help us this year, though, realistically. It's a good year to get the attention on it and try to get that funding for the next one. But I just want to be upfront about that.
Yeah, but you're right. You're getting out ahead of it. This is a problem when we talk about the river being a finite resource. It's actually maybe a depleting resource depending on what the weather conditions are. Getting that program out there could do a lot. And I really think the city's doing a great job of looking at that.
And Mark, I'll just add that I was on council when we had the discussion, and there was definitely motivation from council with a desire to do that. And the big prohibiting factor at the time was cost. And for some reason, the number 15 million sticks in my head. It's a pretty big number, but to the city manager's point, with some of the infrastructure funding that's coming out of Washington and the state, and the fact that this is something that really will have a positive impact when you're talking about from a climate change and reusing and resiliency standpoint, it touches on a lot of pieces that I appreciate that the city managers pushing this forward to try to solve that last piece related to the funding, because the desire from the council and the community clearly is there, but sometimes you got to make decisions based on, well, is there even funding to do it?
Yeah, see, I think that Ozzy and Jeff have the right idea. They're not even shaving at all. All kinds of water that you're wasting when you're there. And me, I guess. All right, anything else from City Council?
One more question really quick in the chat box from Patricia. She would like to know what is being done to reach out and retrain residents.
So I think, meetings like this was my focus of the messaging for today. All of us on our social media channels, as well as the city, is doing outreach. If you look at the Healdsburg Tribune, there's an article written by our conservation analyst just detailing what people can do, and just trying to get the message out of just the little things like the rebates, how you access it, trying to make it easier to access those things, and then just help with ideas on how people can conserve water, with the suggestions related to everything from irrigation to just when you're brushing your teeth kind of thing. So it's just trying to get that message out, and that'll be continuing. It's not just a one and done type of thing, because this is something that's important.
Yeah, I know we were talking, thanking Mike for all the stuff he does, but really the guys, you on the city council, who all have jobs, and have a lot of balls in the air for us as city residents and business owners. We really appreciate what you're doing. I don't know that we actually can appreciate it unless we've been at the meetings to see all that you handle, but you're doing a really great and responsible job. Except for you, Dave, other than that.
Excuse me, sorry. If I may add, I just wanted to mention that Felicia Smith also mentioned at the council meeting that a notice will be sent out in the utility bills. So every customer will get noticed about the mandatory 20% reduction.
Great, thank you, Skylar.
And the city is going to be keeping their eyes open for leaks and things like that, and we'll notify people if there's issues. But we're trying to go with an education first side, but there will be penalties for violators and that sort of thing.
I also wanted to add as well, like marquee messaging at the Raven. I know that we're working with the Healdsburg Chamber, Healdsburg Unified School District, Indivisible Healdsburg in terms of getting our messaging out. And then one also important thing to note is we're doing a ride through conservation kit giveaway on June 12th between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. So I also wanted to add that in terms of the education and communication piece coming out from the city.
Great.
David, Mark Decker, I just had one question in regards to the calculation of a 20% reduction. Is that going to be a per month situation, or is it over a course of time? Because I know irrigation patterns are basically, some are turned off entirely during the winter months, and then they're turned on for the summer months. So is there going to be a calculation on what month is going to be a 20% reduction?
Jeff, do you want to take that one? I feel like it was covered in the council meeting, but it was a very specific question. I know that our water rates are determined on use between, I think, November 1st to April 1st to kind of set the rates. But I think it's just year over year, because your bill will show you how much you were using last year versus this year. And we're looking at it collectively for the city.
Indeed, the goal is collective for the city, and then the specific requirements like irrigation days and times and car washes, those are the mandatory restrictions. But we do have, and Felicia had this in the report this week, goals by month, because of course the usage in different months is different. So for each month we have a goal that would equate to our 20% savings.
Quick, Jeff, quick question for you. The 20% usage savings, what does that do fiscally then? Obviously there's fixed operating costs. So is the utility have enough reserves to cover that, or are ratepayers going to see then increases come down the line to cover those shortfall?
Yeah, great question. We believe at this time we have reserves that will cover that shortfall. We build that in, that this can happen. Our team does a really nice job. I take no credit for this, but our utilities team does a really nice job thinking about that and making long-term projections that recognize that sometimes you're going to have droughts, and we're going to be asking how many businesses, ask their customers to cut back, and that's what we're doing. So we think we can withstand it at this point. We're not anticipating changes. It could get worse though. So that's where it could change. This 20% is not the final number that you're all going to hear for the rest of the year necessarily. That's the scary thing. The city council voted to implement stage 2 conservation measures. We do have a stage 3 in our code, and that's 40%. And there could be shades of gray. There could be different steps. And financially that could, we'll see. But at this time, we believe we can withstand that, and we will happily forego the revenue in the interest of keeping our system working.
I would think the residential figures would have been impacted by the pandemic as well. More people at home for longer periods of time, using facilities there. Did we see an uptick in last year versus previous year? Is that part of this program, part of the problem? And that may just naturally fall away as businesses,
I don't know if we saw a reduction in overall use through the pandemic. I haven't heard that we did.
Oh, I would have thought it would have gone up actually, because people.
Not that I'm aware of, though I don't want to tell you I'm certain. I will say financially, this is sort of a different topic, but we're not shutting people off for overdue bills at this point, and that's something that will be coming back to the council for consideration in a couple of weeks. We've done that through the pandemic, which I think is the right thing to do, but it does stress the finances of the system. We've got, we're deep into the 6 figures for owed debt on the system. So that's really a different issue, but it's one that makes it a little bit challenging when you do it in the face of a drought.
Yeah, a lot of things that, up in the air on this stuff. It's tough. Anybody else have questions for Jeff or for any of the other council people?
I just have a quick question regarding, it seems to me in prior droughts, they were giving away like free low flow shower heads. Is that anywhere in the scope of things? Is that a potential? Because that would seem like an obvious way to just quickly replace your shower head, low flow. I mean, that's got to be huge savings on water.
Ozzy, do you want to, is Ozzy still on? He had all the details on, we have a giveaway coming up. Maybe he's
yeah,
gone.
we have a conservation kit giveaway. I think it was like June. I don't have my notes here open. It was in June. I think that might be a better question for Felicia. It seems like we're trying to kind of address or trying to find out of that 70% usage, is it irrigation? Is it shower? So that's a question that I think Felicia can answer, and I'd be happy to get back to you on it.
We still are doing the water rebate program. We're switching to low flow toilets, but I can put the link in the chat now, the water rebate page that talks about all the different ways you can upgrade your home or business water appliances to mitigate some of that water usage, and front loading washing machines is one of the biggest ones as well. So there's a rebate on there for washing machines. I just put the link in the chat.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelly.
And like I said, this will be a constant messaging thing. So as these questions come up, they are things that we can then push out, because the question you just had, I'm sure there are a lot of other people who have the exact same question. So I appreciate it. Any questions, just feel free to shoot an email to any one of us, and we'll get that over to our public information officer to include in the messaging.
Okay, great. Jeff, you got anything else you want to get out to the public while you've got a chance?
Yeah, I'll be really quick. You heard a bit about me on the drought side, so that's been the big thing this week. And I'm appreciative of the city council moving really quickly to get in front of this and take the step to push toward conservation and look for proactive, solutions-oriented ways we can partner with people. So I think we've done what we needed to do at this stage, but it is a challenging situation. Obviously, we still have a pandemic going on too. So we're tracking that. Looks like we're making progress on moving to the next tier. It's the case rate is the one last piece of the 3 pieces that we needed to do a little bit better on, and the data that came out 2 days ago was good there. As I said at the council meeting, I think it's a little bit of a race against the clock to see if we make the yellow tier before the state just throws the whole tier system in the garbage can on June 15th. I think we might, but that adds a whole lot of uncertainty. We as an employer are also working on plans to get our staff fully back to work and open up facilities to the public, the kind of things that you've all been wrestling with all year. So I want to let you know that that's happening. And we're also making plans to bring back summer programming as much as we can. I think I saw Mark Thiemig was on, and bringing back summer camp and sports programming. So our group's done a really pretty amazing job finding ways to do that in compliance with these really, really complicated safety protocols that you all deal with as business owners as well. And they keep changing, and it's hard, but we're going to do as much as we can to get something that looks like a normal summer. In terms of programming, we're looking at ways to bring back events safely. We don't know quite what that looks like and when it happens, but I want you all to know that we're trying. So it's going to be an interesting summer. You know, I was struck in the last week by the idea that herd immunity isn't deemed really likely anymore. So we're going to have probably little flare-ups of this virus and different variants for a long time. So we're trying to get our heads around that and find ways that we can return to the closest to normal that we can get to. But I want you all to know that we're working hard to open up our facilities again and to get that programming moving. I also want to acknowledge all of the partners. I saw Joan on, who have done pretty amazing work. Healdsburg is way ahead of our neighbors and everywhere pretty much in terms of vaccinations. The work will be different now. It's very easy to get a vaccine appointment for most of us. For those for whom it's hard, that's where we have to find ways to get to them. And obviously education, because the supply demand challenge has shifted. And so we need to be mindful of that. And then really quick, I'll just note we have a few things coming up at the next council meeting. We'll have to talk about our policy for shutoffs and bills for our utilities, which is a tough one. I don't envy the city council having to think about that in the face of us declaring a drought emergency, but we'll be talking about that soon. We do have a proposal from Verizon for an additional cell facility out at the golf course. I know from my professional history, cell infrastructure always creates an interesting dynamic for approval. But I think it's a little bit different in Healdsburg because I know we've had some communications challenges in some of our emergencies of late. So I think that adds a different wrinkle to this, but still something we'll have to work through. And we'll also be considering, the council will be considering adoption of an updated emergency operations plan. Our team, police and fire, and really the whole city, every department have been working on getting that updated based on what we've learned from the last several real live disasters. So I think that's really timely and I'm excited about that. I think it's good work that just helps us operate more smoothly when we have to activate our emergency operations center. And it seems like either physically or virtually, our emergency operations center has been active about 80% of the time over the last few years. So unfortunately, our team is getting pretty good at managing that, but I just want you all to be aware that that's something that will come to the council as well. So a lot going on, but I think we're making good progress.
Talia also had a question about whether there was any update on the 4th of July.
There are a lot of discussions. It's becoming, I don't know, is what I'll say right now. We have real concerns on a number of fronts. One is it's so dry and there are fire concerns right now. The other is that as our neighbors start to pull back on doing fireworks, and we're trying to watch that really closely, there's a real concern that whichever city is left standing and does that will just be completely overrun, which now creates COVID concerns and emergency response concerns outside of the fire. You start pulling in mutual aid, but where do you stage all your engines and ambulances so you can just get to people? Where do people gather if they're not gathering in the traditional kind of highly packed sites? So there are some real safety concerns, and it's something we're actively considering, but it's a tough one.
All right. Well, good news for you is we're out of time, so they can't ask you any more questions. I want to thank everybody, and especially want to give a shout out to Jessica, who's done a great job in assisting with putting all this together and helping out with the questions that come up on the chat room. Thank you, Jessica. You've done a great job.
Thank you. I'm excited to be joining these now.
Great. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. And
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
Mark, it's Pat Abercrombie. Just real quick, heads up. Fitch Mountain is doing with the County Department of Emergency Management and the city doing a full-fledged evacuation drill on June 5th, which is only 2 days after the next of these meetings. So I thought I'd just mention it today. It'll be pretty noticeable to folks.
Okay, great. You're sure you're not the only house that's being evacuated, though?
I don't think so. I've talked to a couple people that, they've got their cars backed in and their go bags ready. So I think it'll happen. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.